This video is brought to you by the Rocket Knight Resparked collection, yeah! Back in the 90s, furry little creatures ruled the video game world, but there was one game series that did forge its own path. Rocket Knight. Man, these games were easily some of my favorite when I was younger. Heck, I honestly liked it more than a certain blue hedgehog. You give a little possum a sword and a jetpack, I mean, how am I not supposed to love this? It's an amazing game series that I wish a new generation could truly experience. Well, it turns out, now they can, with the release of Rocket Knight Adventures Resparked Collection. A brand new Rocket Knight Collection series. Yeah, 3 games in one. Rocket Knight Adventures 1 and 2 on Sega Genesis, and Sparkster on the Super Nintendo. As well as a museum mode with tons of visual goodies and jukebox mode we'll talk about later. So, I figured out what better time to actually talk about these games than now. Right off the bat, the collection has a new feature that wasn't present in the original games. An animated intro that I absolutely love. Seriously, this makes me realize how easy a Rocket Knight cartoon would succeed. It's visually gorgeous, has fun music, and goes beyond hard. The story of Rocket Knight Adventures is pretty simple. You take control of our Rocket Knight himself, named Sparkster. The kingdom has been overrun by evil pig creatures, and it's up to you with your trusty jetpack and sword to save it. It's about as simple could be, and that's the key to making a fun and memorable game. Give me a story that's easy to understand and gameplay that's even easier to execute. I'm a firm believer in level 1 making or breaking a game, and Rocket Knight's level 1 perfectly encapsulates the experience. You move from left to right and slash away at enemies. Some of them are on foot, while others are in crazy mechs. They tower over you, but they're no match for Sparkster. Your 2 forms of offense come in the form of your sword and jetpack. Your sword is, well, for slashing. If an enemy comes within sneezing distance of you, they'll be chopped up for breakfast bacon. Your sword, however, also has a projectile that comes out with the slash. That, accompanied with the game's fast-paced and blast processing, there's plenty of moments where the game will transition from feeling like a side-scrolling platformer to a run-and-gun similar to Contra, which actually is pretty appropriate. The director of Rocket Knight Adventures was Nobuya Nakazato, one of the head honchos in charge of older Contra games at the time. Alongside Sparkster's sword is his jetpack. You activate it by holding down the attack button and charging this meter. When it's fully charged, you point the D-pad in your desired direction and go crazy! It's got a dual purpose. You can obviously use it for fast travel and free movement, but also as an attack. From a presentation standpoint, the game is top-notch. It's visually very beautiful. The colors are all nice, every stage pops regardless of its surroundings, whether it be a grassy field, a castle interior, or inside a cave. For me though, all the charm is truly found in the small details. Just look at Sparkster's idle animation as an example. He excitedly bounces up and down with a smile, eager to go on his adventure. If you continue not to press a button, he eventually stops and just crosses his arms while looking at you, being like, hey, you gonna play this or not? His walk is so dramatic and full of emphasis, a true hero walk showing he has no fear and will boldly walk into the fire. When you use your jetpack and come falling down to earth, he has such a scared look on his face, but it happens so fast you could barely tell it's happening unless you're looking for it. Even the enemies. Every time you defeat one, you strip their armor off of them and they run away in their underwear. The game is just chock full of charm like that, and that's how you make players fall in love with a character, personally. Rocket Knight never says anything or has a cutscene where you fall in love with his actions. He's just a determined little guy. As I mentioned earlier, the game is really fun and action-packed. There's always explosions going off and attacks you gotta dodge. Your reflexes gotta be on point, and for an old man like me, they've kind of gone away. Luckily though, if you're like me, the Resparked collection has your back. A lot of these retro game collections have this feature, and I'm personally all for it. There's a rewind button that lets you, rewind the game and try again at a certain point. Now, me being a super professional gamer, I would never use the rewind button. No. The footage you're seeing is not me. I was hacked. Alright, whatever. I'm not afraid to admit it. The game gets difficult. What do you want from me? This rewind feature saved my butt more times than I can count. There's also a handy save state feature that lets you save your game and come back to that exact spot whenever you want. And hey, since we're talking about new features, I always like collections like these where you can change the screen size and background image. Loads of fun to fit your preference. As a kid, I always loved when the game took up the whole screen, even if it messed with the resolution, but here it doesn't do that. Oh wait, have I even mentioned the music yet? To the surprise of no one, the music is awesome. Perfectly Sega Genesis. Every track has loads of high energy. Now as a kid, this is the only game I ever played. I never even knew it had a sequel and weird stepbrother of sorts on the competing console. Both of these games were being worked on at the same time, which is pretty interesting. First, let's talk about the sequel, Sparkster, Rocket Knight 2. It picks up right where you left off. You save the princess and stop the evil pig people. However, the princess immediately gets captured again. Maybe they should have had more security than just one Rocket Knight? The first thing you'll notice is that the game is noticeably slower than the previous entry. Sparkster's sword no longer shoots out a projectile, and the swing is much slower. The game now feels more like a traditional side-scroller rather than a Contra-style shoot-'em-up hybrid. Before, your attacks could be a little more reckless, and you could mash the attack button like crazy. But here, you need to read the enemy's attacks more and act accordingly. At first, I didn't really like this change, but I really did grow to like it. It's kinda like why I prefer Mario 2 over the Lost Levels. The same exact game would probably feel a bit repetitive. And the focus of the game is now on the jetpack charge. Before, it was just a fun little feature to add excitement to the gameplay. But now, levels and bosses are literally built around it. Speaking of changes, they also gave Sparkster a bit of a makeover. He looks more, I don't know, radical, tubular, swooed. He looks like a cool guy you don't want to mess with. I personally prefer his older design, mainly because he was cuter. Rocket Knight 2 is also much harder in my opinion, so the rewinds are definitely more in play here. It's a fun entry in the series, having a more methodical take on the gameplay. Every stage and boss is essentially still built around the jetpack and flying around everywhere. Heading over to the Super Nintendo, we'd have Sparkster. Now, despite coming out after Rocket Knight Adventures, Sparkster isn't a sequel or even really a spin-off. During the console wars, you were either on one team or the other, so if you only had a Super Nintendo, this was your introduction to the character. In the Super Nintendo's eyes, this is the one and only true Rocket Knight game. From a gameplay perspective, I'd say it's a mix of both Rocket Knight 1 and 2. The combat is more nuanced and action-focused, rather than run and gun like in Rocket Knight 2, but the fluidity and movements with the jetpack is present that made Rocket Knight 1 so fun. That's what I really like about Sparkster on SNES. It's like an alternate universe version of Rocket Knight. The story is relatively the same. A kingdom is under attack and you gotta save the princess. Everything I said about the first game applies here. It's fun, fast, and a pleasure on the eyes and ears. The console wars really did bring out the best in companies, multiple games that are similar but different in their own way. And hey, with the Rocket Knight Adventures Resparked Collection TM, you can now have them all at your fingertips. There's a fun boss rush mode which I always just challenge myself with. As you can see, I'm pretty terrible, but that's what this mode is for, to practice and be better than your last attempt. There's also tons of fun extras in the museum mode, a place where you can look at old promotional material from around the world, go through the game manuals, and for animation fans, there's the process of making the intro for the collection. Or if you just want to chill and listen to the fun soundtrack, there's a jukebox mode. This right here, this is what it's all about, baby. I strive to be this one day. So yeah, Rocket Knight is honestly peak 90s video game in my opinion. And what's great is that the Resparked collection is out right now. Yes, this very moment. So what are you waiting for? Click that link down below and get Rocket Knight Adventures Resparked Collection TM today. It's available on Switch, Steam, and PS5. Enjoy some good old 90s gaming with some RC Cola. And thanks again Rocket Knight for sponsoring this video. Hey, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, click that link in the description and check out the new Rocket Knight collection. I was in shock when I heard they wanted to work with me. I was so happy to do that because I've wanted to talk about Rocket Knight for so long. Even as a kid, I played this game and never ever beat it. I actually didn't even beat it until they gave me a code for the game. So yeah, absolutely. check it out. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video. Regular content, coming back to normal. I tried to make this sponsored video a little more fun, a little more entertaining than maybe I would have before. Who knows? But hey, that's it.